It's Valentine's Day and anime is in the air, and love as well. There's so many good anime love stories out there, and if you're spending this year's Valentine's Day in, we've got 4 anime romances that are worth checking out.
Kawaii-Fi!
Konnichiwa, it's Kyle here, and it's February! So that means we need to talk romance, because of course we do. If you're a long-time listener of our podcast, you might be aware that I'm a massive fan of romance manga. If it's got that romance tag on there, there's a pretty good chance that I've checked it out in some shape or form. And this year we have so many romance anime coming out that we're spoilt for choice. So with Valentine's Day upon us, I put together a short list of great romance anime worth checking out. So let's get started with Domestic Girl. I'm joking, don't do that to yourself. It was awful, and that goes 10 times over for the manga. It's a domestic dumpster fire. And the same goes for Rent a Girlfriend. Don't at me, you know it's true. So here's some wholesome romance anime that's worth checking out, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Kaguya-sama Love is War is probably one of the most well-known series on this list, and there's a very good reason for that. From its incredibly memorable openings, its compelling and entertaining story, to its well-written characters and consistent laughs, Kaguya-sama is a series that has stood out again and again over the past few years, and it stands up equally well as a manga and even its live-action adaptation. If you've not managed to catch Kaguya-sama Love is War yet, you're in for a treat. Set in the prestigious Shuchin Academy, the series focuses on Student Council President Miyuki Shirogane and Vice President Kaguya Shinomiya. Coming from a struggling family, Miyuki is the top academic student of the school, and Kaguya excels in almost any field she tries her hand at, and comes from the extremely wealthy Shinomiya family. The entire student body thinks of them as the perfect couple. Despite having developed feelings for each other, neither is willing to admit it. The first to confess loses, and they will be looked down upon, belittled, and considered the lesser. So, with their pride at stake, Miyuki and Kaguya are both determined to be the one to emerge victorious on this battlefield of love. It's basically 2 tsunderes trying to get the other one to confess. What really sets Kaguya-sama apart is the way it approaches its storytelling and romance. From the character interactions, to its use of its narrator, to how it takes rom-com tropes and spins them on their head, this series has enjoyed an incredible amount of success thanks to how it's pieced everything together. You see the characters grow and change over the series, something that becomes increasingly important as the show goes on, and you start to see their approaches changing and adapting based on what's worked and failed before. Every side character that's introduced has a role to play, even if it's not immediately apparent, and they each have their own stories to work through. It's a series filled with strong emotions, good laughs, and well thought out moments that never feel like they drag. Also, when it comes to fan service, you won't see much of it here, with the author repeatedly making jokes in the manga about how the series was failing due to the lack of it. Love is War generally shows a lot of respect for its characters, which is a nice change compared to the many romance series which rely on ecchi to sell. The series is also tied in with Japanese folklore, with the names of the characters and the overarching plot taken from one of Japan's oldest monogataris, The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. And while it shares many elements of the original tale, the series finale is looking to be a lot more cheerful and a lot more funny. With the manga well into its final arc and the 3rd season arriving this year, there's no better time to get into Kaguya-sama Love is War. It's a funny but heartfelt little love story. You can watch the 1st season on Crunchyroll and both seasons with their dub on Funimation globally. And yes, the dub's actually pretty good. Next on the list is a beautiful coming-of-age love story, Tsuki ga Kirei. As the moon, so beautiful. If you're into Japanese literature, you've probably heard the phrase Tsuki ga Kirei desu ne at some point in your reading, or its translation, the moon is beautiful, isn't it? It was apparently coined by Japanese writer Natsume Soseki, who during his teaching days heard his student translate I love you from English into Japanese as ware kime o aisu, literally I, you, love. Soseki responded to the student saying Japanese people don't use such an expression. You should say the moon is beautiful, isn't it? The idea behind this is that expressing something indirectly in Japanese is more polite, such as how most Japanese people wouldn't just say no outright to a request, but maybe something like maybe not today or it's not really a good time. Both literature and the indirect nature of Japanese culture play an important role in this series, as 2 middle school students fall in love and struggle to communicate those feelings with one another. The series focuses on aspiring writer Kotaro Azumi and track team member Akane Mizuno, who end up in the same class for their final year of middle school. Initially strangers to one another, what starts as a few fleeting glances blossoms into a warm and honest tale of young love, filled with the uncertainty, heartache, and joy that accompany with it. The story steadily makes its way through the pair's final year, taking the time it needs to show their interest grow into something more with each episode, and it doesn't rely on the common romance tropes we see in so many series. Instead, it feels like a story told from the heart, and writer Kakihara Yuko has really captured the feelings of that first awkward love perfectly, albeit that these kids have much more urgency than I did at their age. It's also not afraid to look at the many things we felt awkward about during school, such as rewriting that text over and over, or noticing your preferences for the first time. More than anything, the series makes you want to support our leading characters as it progresses, and it does a really good job of getting you invested in that relationship. Throughout Tsuki ga Kirei, there's a strong attention to detail such as gestures and emotional responses, and it knows when to show you things rather than outright telling you them. It's one thing to say Kotaro was happy he received a text from Akane, but to see him playfully shadowboxing with his light cord in joy shows so much more than just words could. With a story that's complete in 12 episodes, a soundtrack that interweaves beautifully with the story, and a unique art style that gives the feeling of happy nostalgia, minus the occasional awkward CG crowds, Tsuki ga Kirei is an anime that's easy to recommend when people are looking for a wholesome emotive love story. You can find it on Crunchyroll worldwide with subtitles and on Funimation for the dub, which was also handled pretty well. But be warned, you might find yourself shedding a sexy tear or two, or just straight up ugly crying. But make sure you stick around for the final credits, it's worth it. Now, let's be real for a second here, it can be a bit hard to find your tribe if you're into something that's a little bit niche. And that's even more so the case in Japan, where the stigma around being labelled an otaku means many people won't share their interests publicly. And this is what Wotakoi, Love is Hard for an Otaku, is all about. The series focuses on 4 staff members in an office building, with each having their own otaku interest. Momose Narumi starts as our focal point, having slept through all her alarms on the first day of work at a new job. Happens all the time. Narumi is a manga otaku and fujoshi. She writes boy love doujins, a secret she's determined to not let any of her new colleagues discover. But those plans go out the window on the first day when she runs into old childhood friend Nifuji Hirotaka at the office, himself a shameless gaming otaku. He casually asks her whether or not she'll be attending the upcoming summer Comiket, leaving her cover blown in front of 2 other staff members, Koyanagi Hanako and Kabakura Taro, who we later learn are also both otakus. Over the following days, Narumi and Hirotaka end up spending a lot of time together, eventually deciding to date after Hirotaka promises to play games with her and help out at her booth at Comiket, and this is all in the first episode. From here on out, the pair end up hanging out regularly with Taru and Hanako from work, and we get to see how their relationship progresses, one hilarious moment at a time. One of the things I love about Wotakoi is that it doesn't dance around the fact that some of us can be pretty awkward in a romantic setting, whether that's telling a poorly timed joke or not knowing what to say. But this series makes it feel a lot more normal than we see in other anime series, feeling grounded in the real world by how it tackles any drama earnestly. I also love the fact that all the characters are in their mid-20s, a rarity in the hetero-romance genre, and have enough respect for themselves to not hide who they are, which is a really important message. The art style is warm and welcoming, the OP perfectly captures the series vibe, and the character interactions are a lot of fun to watch once you get used to how tall everyone is. The series recently had 3 OVAs continuing the story, which were bundled with the manga when it wrapped up its final volume last year. Unfortunately, only fan subs are available for those so far, but fingers crossed. You can watch the series on Amazon Prime Video in the US and UK, but you might need to break out the VPN if you're in other regions. And if you've already seen Wotakoi and loved it, you might want to check out My Senpai is Annoying. Honestly, the 2 series could be in the same building. Over the past few years, we've seen a massive amount of teasing girl romance animes come out. And this includes series such as Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out, Yancha Gal no Anjou-san, and many others. Funnily enough, all of these series I mentioned started in 2017, a few months after the Teasing Master Takagi anime was announced.
Coincidence? I think not!
Teasing Master Takagi hit our screens in 2018 and introduced us to the cheeky Takagi and the scheming but endearing Nishikata. Now, the premise of the series is actually pretty straightforward. Takagi loves to tease Nishikata whenever she can. Nishikata, however, wants to give Takagi a taste of her own medicine and tease her back, coming up with idea after idea to try and embarrass her. But Takagi knows him far too well, and uses her knowledge of his behaviour to predict how Nishikata will react, making it impossible for him to get one over her, at least to his knowledge. The Teasing Master Takagi manga has been running since 2012 and has spawned a plethora of spin-offs in that time, including even a sequel-style series where Nishikata and Takagi are married and have a daughter of their own. Something that's worth noting is that the anime adaptation doesn't follow the manga directly. It instead cherry-picks the best parts to adapt and drive the story forward, which works really well for the adaptation. It's helped along by the incredible voice acting of Rie Takahashi, who has a bit of a Takagi streak of her own.
Ecchi. いやちょっとやだちょっと今の話だってワイプで映ってんのすごいやだもん。
If you've already seen Takagi and are following along with Season 3, keep an eye out for 2 more series written by Yamamoto Soichiro landing this year. In the heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki is a cute series focusing on an all-girl ninja squad, which airs in April. And then there's Even So, Ayumu Approaches, a rom-com set in a high school shogi club, which lands in July. Yep, we've got 9 months straight of Yamamoto Sensei's work coming out as anime, and as someone who's read almost everything he's released, I can't wait. But unfortunately, watching Teasing Master Takagi has become a bit of a chore thanks to Netflix. Season 1 is available on Crunchyroll and Funimation services, but Netflix decided to buy up the rights for Season 2 worldwide, and then they released it 4 months after it had aired in Japan. You know, the same mistake they make with every anime they get their hands on. Because of this, most people had forgotten about it as a new anime season had already started airing and the viewing numbers were pretty low. And with neither Netflix or Funimation wanting to sell their part, neither renewed it, and Season 3 has ended up on high dive. Yep, aren't streaming services just great? There's plenty of great other romance series out there, such as Komi Can't Communicate, Tsurezure Children, HoriMiya, and even this season's Dress Up Darling. Guess I'll just have to do another video next year, there's so many. Sound off in the comments for your favourite romance recommendations for Valentine's Day, and before anyone tries, no, Berserk and Goblin Slayer don't count. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, hit that subscribe button. We've got monthly videos, interviews with voice actors, and plenty more planned for this year. We also have a fortnightly anime podcast called Kawaii-Fi Radio, so follow the links in the video description to find us in your app of choice. A big thank you to our Patreon members who are supporting the channel. If you'd like to support us and get access to some behind the scenes content and extras, you can find the link for the Patreon below. And with that, I'm Kyle, and until next time, watch some anime.